Assalamu alaikum, and I thank all of you for joining us in this online protest against the continuous persecution of state against Muslim students activists. So, dear friends, when um oppression becomes a law, sort of, then our resistance becomes a duty. तो ये जो हमारी मज़ाहमत है यही हमारी ज़िंदगी बन जाती है उस वक्त जब जुल्म जो है एक लॉ बन जाता है तो we know that state has been continuously oppressing Muslim students activists especially be it from Sharjil Imam, Safura Zargar, Asif Tanha, Miran Haider and and the list goes on and very recently day before yesterday with our dear friend Sharjil Usman. So few men came in their civil dresses, abducted him in broad daylight, and then, like a filmy scene, they just produced him in front of court, and then now he's in judicial custody. So here we all are present to show our resistance, and joining us we have Wardah Beg, who is a law student in Aligarh Muslim University, and also she's an activist. So to begin, I would request Wardah Beg now to speak with us. Over to you, Wardah.
Am I audible?
Yeah.
Just a second. Thank you so much, Fraternity Movement HCU, for giving me this opportunity to finally speak about what has been happening for a while, and especially about Sharjeel Usmani Bhai, who is a senior in college and a very good companion of all of us, has been there, throughout the anti-CAA and RCA protests, and even before that. All that we were doing before this were, creating Twitter storms, sort of sending WhatsApp texts to people and creating awareness about it, but we did not get the opportunity to really speak about it, and it's a relief that now I'm able to. First of all, I will begin with who Sharjeel Usmani is, and it is important for me to do so because in the manner in which the state is trying to criminalize Muslim youth, with such hatred and with such venom, it is very important to repeatedly discuss and rediscuss who the person in question is, what is their story, where did they come from, how did they become this, that. Sharjeel Usmani was a student. He is a university student. He has not even completed his graduation, so he's very young. He's 23 years old, and he is a student of, I think, BA Political Science in AMU. So how did this person, who was an ordinary student like you and I, became such a threat to the state that they had to follow such procedures, such illegal methods to pick him up, to abduct him almost, to present him, to jail him. Sharjeel Bhai, I remember my first interaction with him happened really late, but I always sort of, how there are some people in your college whom everyone knows about. And Sharjeel Bhai was this person. I can say this for sure, that in the past 4 or 5 years, there has been nobody who has been so vocal about, everything under the sun, everything unjust and everything wrong that was going on, more than Sharjeel Bhai in the campus. So he was sort of that person who kept activism alive in the campus when, I think it is very true to say about Aligarh Muslim University that it is a very dead campus. It's not a very happening campus, and to do something there is really difficult, to organize something, and even academic events and conferences are not as frequent as they are in other universities. So to think of organizing something like a protest or a meeting or a discussion is even more difficult, especially on topics that are controversial at large. So initially, Sharjeel Bhai was that person who I remember initially he was a part of the university debating and literary club, and he used to take the journalistic writing forum, and he used to teach us how to write news pieces. And I attended some of his forums. He was this really passionate person And now, moving on a couple of years, I realized, I mean, looking from a distance, and you know how ideologies sort of develop, how a person's ideas develop. He came to be this person who got really concerned about his Muslim identity, because he came from a community which was at the target of the state, which was the immediate target of the state, the community that the state wants to persecute and exterminate. So that was the sort of thought that I saw developing from a distance, and that's when my interaction with him happened. During the anti-CAA and RC protests. A very personal incident that I would like to share at this point is, how concerned he is about the community. You can tell this from this incident, and I didn't think that I would share this, except when I saw so much potential in him that I thought, maybe someday when someone writes his autobiography, I'd be able to tell this incident and say, that this is the person we are talking about. Sharjeel Bhai came. We were about to start protesting, and we saw that the groups, the students were divided in a lot of groups. There was some sort of clash going on, and the bill was about to be tabled in the parliament. It was like it was due 3-4 days, and he had tears in his eyes. And he came and he said, what are you all doing? Why are you divided in groups? Even now we have a genocide right on our heads, we have swords looming over our heads, and all you care about right now is your group, or your specific ideology. Rather, because you are a Muslim, you should come under one umbrella right now to fight against this bill that is clearly anti-Muslim and clearly Islamophobic. Um, so this person came to be this really well-read, you know almost scholarly person. When you talk about partition, when you talk about violence against Muslims, when you talk about riots, when you talk about um, Indian politics, especially Muslim representative politics. So from being an aspirant, a journalist aspirant, to being this really vocal activist who worked on the grassroots, this is a journey of Sharjeel Usmani, and this is how he came to be so threatening to the state, so much as to enable them, to force them to arrest him in such a manner. Like Khurram has already explained, his arrest happened during the day, I think at 5 p.m., when 5 persons in civil uniform came to his home where he was studying. They took his laptop. They did not tell where they were taking him. They took his books and everything else, and they did not reveal their identity. They said that they are from the UP Police Crime Branch, but they had no name tags, and they were not in uniform. So we have to talk about this repeatedly, and we have to highlight this, because this is a completely this is a complete violation of the rights of a person. So there's a procedure that has to be followed when you arrest a person. There are some rights that Article 22 of the Constitution gives, to a person. For example, the right to know the grounds of his arrest, the right to be informed of the provisions of bail, the right to inform the family of the person, and the right to free legal aid. And all of these are rights that a person gets um, when they are arrested. And none of these was provided to Sharjeel Bhai. He was taken. He was transported to Aligarh. In the meanwhile, his family, his friends, his loved ones, nobody knew where he was being taken, where he was, and we were all worried for about 24 hours, when we ultimately got to know that he has been taken to Aligarh and produced before a magistrate. So at this point, it's important to also highlight that it's wrong on the part of the magistrate as well to sign and to sort of sanction the arrest. I mean, it was clearly an illegal arrest, and it should have been disqualified immediately by the magistrate. Now I'll come to a comparison that I sort of realize can be made between Sharjeel Usmani and Sharjeel Imam Bhai on one hand, and the rest, not the rest, but like the anti-CAA and RC activists at large. And why is it so difficult for people to to stand up with, why do Indian Muslims find difficult to stand up with people like Sharjeel Imam and Sharjeel Usmani? It's because they are so fiercely unapologetic, with their ideas, that any liberal, secular, supposedly Muslim immediately tries to disassociate themselves with these people, because they think that they would be treated in the same manner as Sharjeel Imam or Usmani are treated by the state. Therefore, to find solidarity for these people who are so fiercely unapologetic is a difficult thing. But we have to convince people to speak for them. Now, we have seen in the case of Sharjeel Usmani as well. In the case of Sharjeel Imam, the dissociation happened because people thought that Sharjeel Imam is asking for the succession of Assam from India, and clearly they wouldn't agree with him on that. And for a lot of reasons, for a lot of other reasons as well, they were dissociating with Sharjeel Imam. With Sharjeel Usmani, it's mostly because of his article and his opinion on Shah Rukh, the anti-CAA protester who came to be popular for yielding a gun and pointing them at the police officer during the Delhi pogrom days. Sharjeel Bhai, what he did, Shah Rukh defended himself when the pogrom was happening, and Sharjeel Usmani defended his right to do so. So the reason why we should also agree with Shah Rukh's right to self-defense. I mean, we all come and we quote Malcolm X. We quote, it's really easy to quote Malcolm X, honestly. But to realize what he advocated for, how he advocated for self-defense, how he even said that it is criminal to teach a man not to defend himself when he is the constant victim of brutal attacks. This is what Sharjeel Usmani stood for in the past few days. And this is why Op India wrote an article. This Op India is this right wing, it's supposedly a media channel, but it's not really so. It wrote an article about Sharjeel Bhai and how, he is supporting Shah Rukh, the person who has a gun, who's pointing it at the police officers, who's basically exercising his right to self-defense. We all have been repeating so far that solidarity should be unconditional. It should be without ifs and buts at this point, because I mean, it is very necessary to clarify why we're saying this. And a lot of people have come up with defenses like, we should stand with everybody's right to express themselves, we should stand with everybody's right to speak. So that kind of solidarity, even though is large and allows you to stand up for a lot of people, it is also very unclear where it ends. Because if you stand up for everyone's right to speak everything, there's really no limit to that. So I mean, you have to define your solidarity as well. Why we need to unconditionally stand with Sharjeel Usmani right now, even if you have some disagreements with him, you if you're a person who is against the genocide of Muslims, if you're a person who is against an established Hindutva order, a Hindu Rashtra, you should stand with Sharjeel Usmani, because he is from a minority community and he is being targeted for being vocal about his community. He is being targeted because he comes from that community. He has a Muslim identity and he is a thinking Muslim. He is not your ordinary Muslim. He is a Muslim who is articulate. He is a Muslim who can write so well. He is a Muslim who can ideate an entire movement. So we're not talking about someone, someone who's apologetic or someone who is not very clear about his ideas. This is a Muslim who is clear about what he wants. This is a Muslim who is representing other Muslims. And this is a Muslim who is demanding the Muslim community's right to exist, the right to a proportional representation in Indian politics, and the right to equal resources. And that is why we need to show our solidarity unconditionally with Sharjeel Usmani. Now, another thing that I want to highlight about his arrest is that some people say that he was arrested by the anti-terrorism squad, and some say that he was arrested by the by a special task force and some people say by the crime branch, whatever it is. The fact of the matter is that he was arrested from Azamgarh. It is this city from where many Muslim intellectuals, many Muslim students have been picked up, framed in false cases, taken to jail, and they've been made to stay there for years and years, in cases where they do not get bail, where they are kept continuously imprisoned, and then ultimately after years exonerated, बाइज्जत बरी कर दिए जाते हैं मुसलमान लड़के आजमगढ़ से ले जाकर, उनकी पूरी यूथ जो है खराब कर कर उनको स्टेट छोड़ देती है. तो इसका मकसद क्या होता है? The only reason they do is that they destroy that time when that person sort of develops the ability to ideate, to formulate his ideas, to start speaking, to start writing. And this is that time for Sharjeel Usmani. He is a developing scholar, he's a developing speaker, he's developing writer. So at this point, he is almost like an ammunition for our community. He's a pillar for our community. And I think even apologetic Muslims do feel the need to stand with him, even though they won't come forward and say it. Like one of Sharjeel Usmani's brother said that Sharjeel जैसा बेटा सबको चाहिए मगर अपने घर में नहीं चाहिए, मतलब पड़ोसी का बेटा चाहिए. That means that these people, these unapologetic, fearless Muslim voices, we need them. They are the pillars. They are the ones that are, whatever is left of us, they are the ones who are setting standards as to what we can say and what we can't, what is the limit to which we can, ask for things from this state coming from this oppressed community. Another thing that I want to highlight is that whatever has been happening recently, including Sharjeel Bhai's arrest, including the encounter and the very many encounters that have happened before this, and the very many arrests that have happened before this, is that there is nothing hidden in this. That UP is a completely lawless state right now. It is a complete gunda raj. So so to highlight that it's an unlawful arrest is important, but it's also something that we should realize, that the state is no more hiding things from us. It is very outrightly carrying out its actions, and its agenda to make a Hindu Rashtra, to establish a Hindu Rashtra, which pretty much exists, but of course, to declare it and to worsen our condition. Now, why is Sharjeel Bhai arrested? The charges have still not been specified, but he had some cases on him during the CNRC protests, and I think one was because of 15th December. We all know what happened on 15th December, and how the vice chancellor also promised that there'll be no fake cases against you, and all of the cases that have already been registered will be revoked. And he said all of this to sort of save his vice chancellorship, because there was a lot of opposition against him at that point, and to get rid of that and to not declare a signed die, he promised everyone written on a paper that there won't be cases against you, no disciplinary action will be taken against you by the university. But clearly the vice chancellor has also broken his promise, as also the district administration has. And it also reminds me of the High Court order that was passed a month after the protests, that that recommended UP police to sort of compensate the students who were injured, and also to suspend or to take disciplinary action against those police officers that committed brutality and excesses on the students that night on 15 December. But none of that has happened. Neither the students who were injured, who lost their hand, who lost their fingers, none of them have been compensated by the UP government, and neither UP police has taken any actions against any of those police officers who we have all the evidence against, because there are videos of them brutally beating students. There is evidence of them doing custodial torture, so far as breaking bones, fracturing students' bones. They destroyed university property. So there is evidence as to all of that. But no action has been taken against these police officers as of yet. Um, so instead of doing that, what the police is doing is that it is arresting the students who were leading the movement in Aligarh, and one of them was Sharjeel Bhai. There have also been two more arrests from Aligarh Muslim University, that of Farhan Zubairi and Amir Mintoi, who were also anti-CAA protesters here. Um, yes, so what we need to do is that we need to repeatedly say that the UP government is not following even the High Court recommendations and orders, and it is still targeting our students, it is still targeting our movement. um, Also, another thing that I'm reminded of right now is how Sharjeel Usmani and Sharjeel Imam both sort of came from a very grassroots movement. They came from, I mean, these are people who used to conduct talks and discussions under the tree or on the, near the canteen or just sitting somewhere in the lawn. So these are very organic leaders. These are leaders that have emerged out of us, and to tell their story is really important, so as to have uh, the truth side by side, while the state tries to establish a counter narrative of their lives, or tries to make them into some sort of terrorists. What could be the purpose of taking Sharjeel Bhai's laptop or the books he owned, because that's how cases are framed against innocent Muslim youth, whom the state is threatened by. So my point is that the real conversations that, happen under trees and dhabas, and Sharjeel Usmani and Sharjeel Imam were leaders who came out of such conversations, who developed themselves out of these discussions that happen in campus. They are ordinary students like us, but they dare to say things that we do not dare to say. And so this is our time, this is our duty, to stand with them unconditionally at this point when they are being targeted so brutally by the state. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wardah. Um, we have people watching from different parts of the country. This session is also live on Facebook and on YouTube as well. So now, if you have any questions for Wardah, we'll take questions. So you can either write them in chat box, or you can raise your hand. We'll unmute you.
Puram, I think we can take the questions later the session, like in the end
Sure.
of the session.
So please keep your questions noted. We'll have a question answer session in the end. Yes. So now I would request Faseeh Ahmed, who is a research scholar in University of Hyderabad and a student leader, to speak with us.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. I hope that you can hear me.
Yeah, you're audible.
Unfortunately, I landed on a roadside now, so I'm. It's a bit difficult for me to on the video. I'm sorry for that. So when we are having this discussion, as we all know, this day marks the 25 years of Srebrenica genocide, which was forced upon the Bosnian Muslims by the Serbs in 1995, which resulted uh, in the killing of thousands of Muslims, rapes, then sexual assaults, and the thousands of Muslims who were flew out. And today, in this moment, we all remember them. And inshallah, may Lord bless us all to be the part of the uh, fight for the justice which is happening across the Muslim world and especially in India. So the Serbia itself marked a similar situation of different nationalities which were based on racism and chauvinism, and among a huge attack which resulted over the Muslims, or the same idea of racism, uh, and a dominant Serb nationalism, which is being followed, or which we also call as the Indian Muslims are in the verge of ethnic cleansing or genocide in the forms of lynching, communal riot, which have been following for the decades. When my friend and leader Sharjeel Usmani got picked up from his house, and the tweets related with his arrest popped up in our notification bars, tweets and messages. We all saw that he was picked up from his house at Asamgarh. The name Asamgarh, the place Asamgarh itself, will have a lot of memories related to our most of our school lifetime, uh, especially the Indian Muslims. In the memories of Indian Muslim, the Asamgarh has its own place. So during my school days, I used to see where I used to see the Asamgarh in the front pages of the dominant newspapers, news channels, in the flash news, everywhere we used to see Asamgarh as a factory of terrorism in this country. And even in the Butler House, we know that when our brothers were shot, and the very next day, a huge military and all this police machinery went to the streets of Azamgarh and picked up many Muslim brothers from that place. And this kept on continuing in many more cases, and this will be the memory of Azamgarh which we all have. And from that situation of accusation, a reason of terrorism, and a big army of state machineries, now it has turned without any reason, without any arrest warrants, without any arrest warrants, or without any uniform. Anybody can pick up a Muslim leader from his house in the same place which once witnessed a lot of state missionaries. So this is the change that has happened in the uh, this is the change that has happened in the political atmosphere of this country, where uh, a Muslim can be picked up from his house, whoever he is. He's a student, either he is a student, or he's a leader, or he's someone who is selling cows, or whoever he is. He can be picked up, or he can be killed, or whatever, without any even. There is no reason to be shown to the judiciary, or to the people, or to the media. So we have the state of UP, instead of having such a large population of Muslims, always the thought of why these Muslims never turned out to be a political force in the state, which always haunted me, this thought. In UP, despite of having this many Muslim population, we always the Muslims were always the part of Congress, and once the Congress collapsed, it ended up in Bahujan movements. Beyond the representation of Muslims, what was the political uh, political formation, or an independent political formation was there formed in the UP? This question always haunted me. So, what happened to the Muslim, even in the forms of Bahujan politics? What happened to the dream of Muslim politics in the state? The latest example is that the so-called Supreme Muslim leader in the UP, Azam Khan, has been under jail for many days. Whatever the reasons be, being such a big power in a Samajwadi party, what the party, what his followers, or his party, or his co-leaders, or ministers, or whoever has done for this man, he's spending days and days in this country. So, in the form of secular movements, in the form of Bahujan politics, the Muslim, beyond the Muslim representations, the independent dream of Muslim politic has ended up in a kind of a political slavery, or social slavery in UP. We can see that it has been happening for many years. So the same was being repeated in the anti-CAA movement. When the Muslim students dreamed or came out to the streets from the yards of Aligarh Muslim University and Jamia Millia Islamia and Shaheen Bagh to lead a Muslim resistance in this country, the same people, the same secular, the same Bahujan, the same left, all these movements came to us and asked us to save the constitution. This was the Muslim experience we had a few months ago. They asked us how to do the protest. They asked us, you don't have to come out as Muslim, but your duty is to save the constitution. The same way how the Muslim politics was swallowed by the so-called ideas of secular politics in UP and other parts of the country, the same repeated in the case of anti-CAA movement as well. So since the day when the lockdown began, we all know that the Muslim students or the Muslim activists were never let to be locked down. We all were passing through huge mental tensions and problems, because every day we open the newspapers, our brothers from Aligarh Muslim University, our brothers from Jamia, and our brothers from the different parts of the country have been held up. And the first thing that came soon after the lockdown was nothing but the demolition of the protest ground, which was in the Shaheen Bagh, which followed by the huge attack on Tablighi Jamaat people, the followers of Tablighi Jamaat, and then in that name again the lynching and communal violence which happened across the country on the Muslims, especially the beard Muslims, and then it followed and it ended up in the arrest of our dearest brother Sharjeel Usmani. So as the Sharjeel Usmani previously asked, when it is us who are going through this oppression, when it is us when it is us Muslims who are going through all these communal rights, when it is us Muslims who are facing all these kind of attacks since the decades in this country, and why these people are coming with the idea of saving constitutionalism. It is a kind of a lie if we are telling the people that we have to save the constitution rather than building up a Muslim-led movement. So, as I began with the story of Bosnian Muslims, I will end up with a quote from Alija Izetbegovic. I believe that the people, instead of pretty lies, should be told the truth, no matter how ugly it may be. What can we do? Destiny hasn't been good with us, but with the help of God, we will prevail, inshallah. Thank you all. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Khurram, you are not audible.
Thank you so much, Faseeh, for those words. We will continue to raise our voices, fight for our rights, and question the oppression at all times. Even when there are forces uh, among us telling us to be secular, to fight for other causes, and bringing their own narratives. Now, moving on with our online protest, I would request Heba Ahmed. She's a research scholar in JNU to address us.
Assalamu alaikum. Am I audible?
Yeah, you're clear.
Okay. So, Assalamu alaikum to all my listeners. First of all, thank you, Fraternity HCU, for organizing this online protest meet. And while I'll just pay a tribute for all the protests that we have done on the ground, because these spaces that we are occupying online right now, these voices of resistance which we are registering online, are only a continuation of all the protests that we have done on the ground. And so it's just, I feel that we need to remember those protests and continue them the moment things return to normal. So I'll divide my, so I have, there are three parts, kind of three parts to my, sorry, is there a problem? Am I audible?
Yeah, Heba, you're clear. Yeah.
Okay. So I have, there are three parts to my talk. And in the first part, I will be talking about what is the nature of this Muslim resistance that we are seeing right now. What is the nature of the protests that we are witnessing right now? Because is there something different? In the second part of my talk, I will be talking about what is the nature of the repressive apparatus of the state which we are witnessing right now. And in the third part, I will talk about, so following from these two parts, I will talk about the immediate urgency which we are facing right now, which is the indiscriminate witch hunting of Muslim students and Muslim activists. So in the first part, coming to the fact that since the last 7 to 8 months, things have not been normal, so to speak. And what is this difference that we have seen? What is this different thing that we are witnessing right now? To put that into perspective, I'd like to go back a little and remind everyone about the protests that many of us did in universities, in university campuses for the disappearance of Najib Ahmed. In 2016, when Najib Ahmed disappeared, and when I think it was new for JNU campus, and I speak with experience since I was part of those protests, alhamdulillah. It was a very new thing in JNU to hear this vocabulary of Muslim vulnerability to violence, right? So we were talking for the first time about the fact that it's Muslim identities which are at stake. It's Muslim identities which are threatened, and not just in India, not just in the rest of the country, but also in this oasis of JNU, which everyone assumes to be very democratic and very student friendly, etc., etc. Now, when we were doing those protests, a lot of people did not like what we were saying. When I was trying to raise this issue of we have to accept the fact that Najib Ahmed was attacked because he was a Muslim. So this very bare fact was not liked by many people. And it's not just people on the left. The leftist liberals and a lot of people who don't like this new vocabulary of politics, they try to oppose us. And you know what definition, what label they gave to the kind of politics which we were trying to do? They said, "Aap log identity politics kar rahe hain. You people are doing identity politics." And we, in our unwisdom, we accepted this accusation. We accepted this very reductionist word for our politics. We said that, yeah, we are doing identity politics. So from 2016, the struggles of Muslims in universities for the recognition of Muslim identity, from then till today, the registers are the same in a way. We talk about Muslim identity and we talk about Muslim resistance, but is our politics just identity politics? It's not. I want to make this contention here that the politics which Muslim students are doing right now, not just in universities, but everywhere, in every space imaginable, that politics is the politics of the opposition. If India is facing a political situation in which the political opposition is dead or dying or inactive, it is Muslims, it is we Muslims who seem to embody what political opposition is. And I'm saying this with a lot of, I'm making this contention very consciously. So what is the nature of the political opposition? It gives a critique, a constant critique to the government of the day. It gives a constant critique of the laws which are made. And not just that, these critiques are not just verbal critiques. The opposition is out there on the streets. It is protesting night and day. It is protesting with all its with all its vigor, with all its energy. And who are the ones who are protesting with all their vigor and all their energy today? Which political party is it? Which political ideology is it? It's Muslims. That's the identity which is out there on the streets. And I would like to quote Sharjeel Usmani himself here. Hum Musalman Awam protest में majority में. He said this line in his speech somewhere, and it's such a perfectly stated, I think I may be misquoting a little, but what he said about Muslim protests is so perfectly stated that we Muslims are there in the majority of protests that happened since November, December, January, since the last few months that have happened. I'll just read out a few names of cities. This is not an exhaustive list. Silampur in Delhi, Muhammad Ali Park in Kanpur, Roshan Bagh in Allahabad, Park Circus Maidan in Calcutta, Sabzi Bagh in Patna, Iqbal Maidan, Bhopal, Kondwa in Pune, Albert Hall, Jaipur, Jaisam Chowk, Raipur. So these are just some of the names that I just prepared. But this is just such a small list of protest sites which are across the world, right? There are so many other cities which just erupted spontaneously in protests. And who led the protests? How did this sudden emergence of protests start? It all started after Shaheen Bagh. Shaheen Bagh got replicated in many other cities. And that is the reason why I'm making this contention right now, that instead of reducing our politics to mere identity politics, the politics which we are doing right now, which Muslims are doing right now, and it's not just Muslim students over here, you know, the ordinary Muslim, the Muslim on the street, they are coming out of their homes, they're coming out of their comfort zones because of fear, because of a newfound, not just fear, but a newfound resistance, a newfound zid, a newfound obstinacy that we will not succumb to tyranny so easily. We will resist this draconian legislation, the CAA, which has been passed. And that is the reason why I am very consciously calling the kind of politics which Muslims are doing right now as the politics of the opposition. Because let's face it, we expect the political opposition to raise a voice against the legislation of the government. We expect the political opposition to make critiques and to lead protests and to lead movements against the government, but that has not happened. It is Muslims who are doing that. Shaheen Bagh was organized by Muslims. I know for a fact because I participated in I was just there for a bit, but I saw my relatives, my friends in Park Circus, Calcutta. It was Muslims who did that. So Muslims are functioning as the political opposition of the country today, and that is a big deal. That is so significant. I don't even know if the actual political opposition, I mean, whoever it is, be it the intellectuals of Delhi or be it political parties, I don't even know if they're realizing this. Political commentators, university professors, the people who write about politics, are they even realizing the significance of what Shaheen Bagh was? Are they even realizing the immense participation and the immense contribution of that Muslims have played right now in the anti-CAA movement? If they have not, then I want my voice to be a reminder to them, because right now with all the protests having died down, with the Delhi police having demolished the protest site at Shaheen Bagh, have we forgotten what the reality was before the pandemic began, before the lockdown began? If that is the case, then let me remind everyone, let me remind my listeners and those outside that this moment of protest that we saw all across the length and breadth of the country, in so many cities, in so many protest sites, the countless number of Muslims who came out of their homes to protest, there were kids, there were old women. Let's remember the dadis of Shaheen Bagh. They became so famous. They went on NDTV and they spoke on so many different platforms. I myself saw little kids protesting in Shaheen Bagh. So it seems like all the sections of Muslim society were out there and they were protesting. And so this is the reason why I want to emphasize this, that do we realize the significance of this? Do the political commentators and the people who talk politics, do they realize the immense, huge significance of this upsurgence in Muslim society? And this upsurgence, and it's not just an upsurgence in Muslim society. No. This is the challenge which we have thrown to India. To the idea of India, which everyone loves to use this phrase, the idea of India, an idea of India. Muslims are challenging that idea today. Because by stating for a fact that we cannot be deprived of our citizenship, we are pushing back against the tyranny which the Indian state is imposing on us. We are imposing, so we are pushing back against the state imposed legislation upon us. And I I faced this question from a couple of people that, Shaheen Bagh had so many protests with the national flag. So how isn't that also a co-option of nationalism? I don't think so. In Patna, there was some time ago during the anti-CAA movement, when when a young boy called Amir Hanzala was killed by stooges of the RSS. He was killed with the national flag in his hand. What can be more pathetic and shameful for symbols of Indian nationalism when you kill a Muslim with who is holding the Indian flag in his hand? So my contention over here is that whether we're holding a flag of Pakistan, or whether we're holding a flag of India, the Indian state still sees us as just Muslim and therefore killable. And having said that, I'll come to the second part of my talk, which is about the repressive nature of state violence. So I don't know if you've noticed this, but CAA was legislation, right? CAA was a law which was passed by Parliament. And this is something which, as political science students, we are taught this, basic binary in our undergraduate classes. We are taught this difference between political force and political authority. Political force is when you coerce someone by sheer force or sheer coercion or sheer oppression to do something or to not do something, right? For example, Gaur Rakshaks threatening to kill someone or actually killing someone just because someone is eating beef or transporting a cow. Authority is when you give the legitimacy of a particular act, a particular policy by legislation, for example, or for example by judicial pronouncement. Now, what I learned in undergraduate classes is that these two are different. Once force is manifested into authority, the coercive power of the state is not needed because it's not become a law. It's not become a law. It's become like an authoritative mechanism of the state. So the coercive apparatus of the state can now be forgotten. Nothing can be further from the truth for the Indian state. If the CAA was a legislation, if the authority of the state was already manifest in the law which CAA was, why did so many people, Kapil Mishra, Gunja Kapoor who went and disrupted the Shaheen Bagh protests, Kapil Mishra who gave an outright verbal threat to anti-CAA protests. This is the reality of the Indian state, that even with the stamp of legitimacy of its legislation, even after making laws for a particular thing, for a particular policy regarding citizenship or whatever, the coercive and violent arm of the state is not withdrawn. It's still there. The gundas of the state are still running amok, unleashing hell on Muslims. And this shows the complete illegitimacy of the Indian state. That even with its laws, even with the law there on the official Gazette of India, goons of the state are still there. So then we ask ourselves, who is really executing these laws? Who is executing the laws of the state? Is it the executive? Again, something which we learned in political science classes. Or is it these goons, these paid killers of RSS, who are running in the streets of Delhi, killing so many Muslims? Or is it just a random gunman who is shooting at protesters in Shaheen Bagh, or a random gunman who is caught in Jamia Millia, or those policemen who unleashed so much terror in AMU campus or Jamia campus? So this is how the Indian state operates. This is how the repressive nature of the Indian state operates for Muslims. On the one hand, you have the law book, because of the lockdown, of course, the process of NRC data gathering, all of that has been stalled right now, but we still need to see what the implications of the NRC may be, of the CAA may be. And on the other hand, you have this absolutely, the sheer violence of the state. It's in its most bare form. The sheer violence of the state unleashed upon Muslims. Kill those who can be killed, arrest those who can be arrested. I'll come to the third part of my talk from here. The witch hunting of anti-CAA protesters and Muslim students. So, if you've noticed, there is always a script, be it arresting of anti-CAA protesters or Muslim students, or be it any other kind of violence which the Indian state does for Muslims, there is one script which they always follow. And I'll give you an example of the script from 2002 program in Gujarat. First, they manufacture a situation in which they show that Muslims are at fault, that Muslims have done so and so thing, and that any reaction which may be coming upon Muslims from Hindu society is therefore legitimate. Now, having constructed this context of legitimacy, violence is therefore justified. Violence is therefore justified. And after that, when the killings happen, when the violence happens, nobody asks a question. And this is exactly what happened in Gujarat 2002. After constructing the context of Wardah, after constructing the fabricated narrative of a train being burnt, the stage was set for Muslims to be killed. The stage was set to unleash the violence of the Indian state. So the similarity is very, this situation is very similar to what we saw in AMU and Jamia. So when I said in the beginning of my talk that if Muslims are acting like Muslims are acting with the conscience of the political opposition of this country, we can identify two territorial sites of this political opposition. It's AMU campus and Jamia Millia. So the AMU campus and Jamia Millia, why were they attacked? A script was constructed because the first protests against CAA and NRC happened in these two campuses. And when the stage was set, that look, it is these Muslims in AMU campus and Jamia Millia who are defying the authority of the state, which I just mentioned. These two campuses, and it's of course it's Muslim students, are defying the authority of the state. They are resisting us. They are disobeying our laws. They are at fault, and therefore the stage was set for legitimizing police violence on AMU and Jamia. And the reports are all there. Of course, the state has not accepted the versions of the students. In this age of post-truth, it seems that the state can afford to never accept our version of the truth, which is the truth. Truth does not have versions, right? But it seems that in this Indian state, there are many versions of the truth, and the Muslim version of the truth, which is the actual truth, is the least believable. It's the most falsifiable truth. But there's a twist here. This twist is not just constructing the context of repression of Muslims and then unleashing violence. The script does not stop there. After you do the violence, you go and tell everyone that the violence which happened was actually done by Muslims themselves. That is the sheer, the infuriating nature of this violence. That is the reason, that is where this violence becomes especially, unbelievably hellish and infuriating. Sharjeel Usmani has been arrested on grounds that he was responsible for the disturbances in AMU campus on 15 December. Sharjeel Imam has been arrested for supposedly trying to unleash disturbances in Assam. Meera Haider has been arrested because of the Delhi pogrom. Sapura Zargar was arrested. She has been released, alhamdulillah, but she was arrested for trying to unleash violence during the Delhi pogrom. It's so infuriating. Pehle wo hame aake marte hain. First they kill us, then they pick us, then they pick certain given members of Muslims. They pick up some student activists, and then they portray them as the villains. So this is the entire script of repression of the Indian state. That first they kill us, then they unleash violence in us. First they unleash unimaginable repression on our campuses, on our mohallas. Be it Jafrabad, be it all those mohallas in Delhi where the program happened, or be it AMU campus or Jamia campus. And then they have the gall to tell us that it's Muslims who are responsible for the violence which happened on them. So this is the entire script which the Indian state plays with in the context of repressing Muslims, in the context of repressing Muslim activists, and in the context of witch hunting anti-CAA protesters. So this is the entire pattern. So what do we do? How do we respond to this entire script of very and it's a script which has been played out in many contexts. It's not just in AMU and Jamia, not just in the context of anti-CAA. Butler House also, for example, first criminalizing the community and then encountering them and then saying that they were responsible, that the students were responsible. So this script which has happened, how do we respond to that? First of all, we keep talking about the facts. First of all, we keep talking about the facts which happened. First of all, we keep portraying the fact that our testimonies constitute the truth. And Alhamdulillah, we have a lot of people who are doing very good work regarding this. I think the reports about AMU violence and the reports in Jamia, they were all prepared by us. In fact, I think if I remember correctly, NHRC has in fact dismissed some of these. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm not exactly sure about the latest allegations regarding NHRC. What I'm trying to say is that I don't know who is responsible for taking care of our version of the truth, which is the truth, like I said. How many reports and how many commissions of truths and inquiry will actually support our voices? We don't know that. So we have to keep on documenting the fact that this has happened with us. Secondly, we have to keep on supporting these students who are there. And again, Alhamdulillah, I think we can all see there are so many, this new, like I said, the new zest for resistance, it's there. It's so common among Muslims. And I wish that I could convey this to Sharjeel Usmani and Sharjeel Imam and Mira Haider and all those people, Asif, Iqbal and all those people, all our friends. I wish I could convey to them somehow that they're not alone. We are there for them. And that we will not let their voices of resistance die down. That if they are not there among us right now, one day they will be, inshallah, and that in their absence, we will continue to keep up that spirit of resistance. Be it just by repeating over and over again just bare facts of violence, bare facts of oppression, by repeating over and over again that this is what the state has done to us, by continuing to resist, by continuing to keep up that spirit of resistance, which is not new, right? This spirit of resistance which is there among Muslims is very old. It's as old as 1400 years. 1400 years of continuing to uphold the notion of adl, the notion of insaf. So yeah, I think I will stop there. Shukriya for listening.
Thank you so much, Heba, for that. We have few questions in chat box. If you would like to read, I will read out a few of them to you. Wardah, she has asked a question. So Wardah, we would unmute you if you would like, or well, here is her question.
No, I'll read it. So Heba, you said that politics is the politics of opposition. I wanted to ask if that makes our movement, sort of a reactionary movement, and if it does, then does that limit its scope? And also, if our fight is that of the opposition, does it not make or restrict it, to merely an opposition against the current regime? Because according to both Usmani and Sharjeel Imam Bhai, the fight is not merely against the post-2014 government, but against 70 years of repression.
Okay, am I audible?
Yeah.
Okay, Wardah, thank you for your. It's a very important question, and I think I made that point with a lot of confidence. So thank you for your question. Okay, I should have clarified that I did not mean just a political opposition. When I meant to say that Muslims are embodying a politics of opposition, does that make us the political opposition? No. The political opposition functions with a lot of calculations of power, and अगले साल हमें चुनाव लड़नी है, and अगले साल हमें power में आनी है. So let's not talk about everything Let's not talk about those things which will, take away our chances of electoral success. And so we're not that. And of course, I completely agree with Shajil when he said that our opposition is not just against the post-2000, just the Modi regime. It's not. As the opposition, let me just make this claim that we are the moral opposition. Okay, I think it sounds a little contentious, but that's what it is. We are the moral opposition, and I repeat this: we are the moral opposition of the idea of India, of the state of the kind of state which India pretends to be, and that includes a critique of the way the Indian state has imagined itself since uh, for a long time. I don't think I can put a date on this. Our critiques, many of us who have heard Shajil Imam's speeches, his speeches always include a critique of the anti-colonial movement also. So when we portray ourselves as the opposition, we have not just our responses to particular moments and our responses to a particular piece of legislation. No, we have our imagination of where we belong, and not just that, of what the idea of India is, and of what the Indian nation is supposed to be, and of how the Indian nation has imagined itself. What are the limitations of the Nehruvian consensus, for example, which India was for a long time after independence? What are the critiques of the way anti-colonial movement progressed? We know for a fact that there are a lot of voices of during the anti-colonial movement which we don't know of today. For example, I was reading some days ago for my own research. I was reading the fact that the charkha is something which we associate with the Gandhian movement today. The charkha was the symbol of Swadeshi, and the spinning wheel became the spinning wheel, and khadi became the symbols of Swadeshi, the Swadeshi movement. What we don't know, and this book had a good description of the fact that it was Muslim weavers who also were there to uphold the charkha, but they did not have a very Gandhian approach to this. There were Muslim weavers whose approach to the Swadeshi movement was different from the Gandhian approach, right? So their approach to weaving your own cloth and Swadeshi camping and your idea of what Swadeshi India looks like, it was different for Gandhi. It was different for the Gandhi and the Congress, and it was different for this group of weavers in colonial UP. So these are questions, these are stories from history, these are episodes of anti-colonial resistance, which I think all of us are talking about. So when I talk about the opposition, I think, did I answer your entire question? Okay, yeah, I think I tried to answer your entire question. So yeah, as the opposition as the moral opposition, not just the political opposition of the current dispensation, we have not just our piecemeal approaches to particular policies and legislations of the government. No, we have our takes on many things in history, many stories of history, which we are taught very differently otherwise in schools. And it is these things which we will unveil now, and which we will talk about now. And nobody is ready for that. Our voices will not be accepted. But still, we will continue to talk, because that is what we are doing. We are opposing more radically the kind of government which India has, the kind of state which the Indian state has become. So I think that's the answer.
Yeah, thank you for that answer, Heba. We have one more question from Mr. Atif Siddiqui. He asked, despite the lockdown, how can we help support the release of Sharjeel? I believe he means Sharjeel Usmani. So, Wardah, you can also answer this question.
I think both of us should. My idea is that, I mean, like Heba said when she started her talk, that we used to occupy spaces and, like physical spaces. Now that, the spaces that we are occupying online now. So that's one mode. And I think the only mode of protest, until the lockdown opens and we are finally able to move out and do something, like we were doing before the lockdown started. So what we can do right now, and we're already doing, is we are trying to create awareness. We are trying to file complaints. We're trying to get signatures online. We're trying to get support from the international community too. So all of our work right now is mostly online, and I think we should continue with that, like with Twitter trends, or with Facebook posts, or with writing emails to authorities. Yeah, so that's my take.
Am I audible?
Yeah.
See, the argument is just about the method of protest, right? Whether we are protesting with our presence on the ground with slogans and flags, or whether we are protesting online via a Zoom application. The debate cannot just be about a method of protest. The debate has to be always about why we are protesting, about our ideology. What is our critique to the Indian state? Why are we protesting? Because we have something to say. We are protesting for our dignity. So there are many ways in which we can continue that, right? We can continue the conversations in our homes. We can make sure that as a community, we ourselves are made aware about our place in the Indian state. We are that we don't forget our own histories, that we don't forget our own places that we have occupied, that we don't forget the stories of so many protests. And I'm not just talking about the anti-CAA protests. Ours is a history. I think this was, I don't remember reading this. I mean, I don't remember where I read this, but the Muslim participation in the 1857 Qadar, for example, was also very, very visible. Let's talk about these histories. Let's talk about the history of resistance which Muslims in India have had. I think that's very important because we need to know our tariq, jisko kehte, tariq, that this is our legacy, that this is our tariq, this is our history. It's very important for us to know that. So that, after us, this present generation, after this generation, and the generation which comes after that, everyone continues to uphold that legacy because it's very important. And the debate cannot just be about, of course, I completely agree with Wardah, and I'm not disagreeing with her at all. But I think during the lockdown, when we are all at home, this is a very good opportunity, I think, to engage more with those people with whom we do not talk much when we are busy with university schedules. Our homes, for example, our relatives, for example. So the conversation is not always towards the state. The conversation is also within ourselves. And at the risk of sounding slightly preachy, let me just say, this is the moment, I think, when Muslims also need to realize, what is our Islamic values, what are the Islamic values of resistance. And the lockdown is the perfect time when we renew our identities of Muslims, not just as anything else, but as Islamic beings. Because Muslim means a lot of things. Like Muslim means somebody who lives in India. Muslim means a lot of things. Anyway, I need not give a whole lecture on that. But Muslim as somebody who belongs to the religion of Islam. I think the lockdown is a very good opportunity for us to renew that identity of where Muslim means Islamic. So I think on that note, I will end my answer. Thank you.
Thank you. There's one more question directed to you. It's from Zoha Mehdi, if I'm reading it right. She asked, it's directed at Heba. She asked, how do we as civil society members build a momentum for the release of Sharjil Imam, Sharjil Usmani and others? They of course have their legal counsels helping them on their individual cases, but how can we build a parallel narrative? Was that clear?
Yeah, I got the question. The answer is very simple, and thank you for your question. So I'll just bring your attention to a very pathetic thing which I've seen on social media. For example, the moment a Muslim student gets arrested, and there is any post about and there's any post written in support of this activist, there is a barrage of Hindutva trolls who come and leave laugh reacts on this post. I'm pointing out this fact to you to show how well organized they are. And they show their disdain for us, their disgust for us, their ridicule for us in this banal way. I mean, I don't know how many people have noticed this and how others react to this, but I've seen it because my own posts get these haha reacts, and it's infuriating. When we are trying to argue for Muslim lives, you're laughing at us. They are laughing at us. So the reason I pointed this out to you is because they are very well organized. They keep track of, okay, Shajil Usmani, Shajil Imam, पर these posts are there, चलो इस पर हाँ react करते हैं. It's as simple as that. They show their disdain for our lives. They show the disdain for our politics in as banal a manner as possible. Of course, we will not do banal things like that. But we need to increase our resistance. So for example, write more. It's as simple as that. Write more on social media. Write more on there is a wealth of online portals. There are so many online portals. So I think on online portals, we've been writing for these online portals not just during the lockdown. We used to write for them before the lockdown. We used to write for them before the lockdown as well. So right now, when we are unable to protest out in the field, I think this is the best time to make use of these channels which are available online. It's the best time to become writers ourselves. And let's not be. I mean, there's an RP I have. She's like an elder sister to me in Calcutta, and she says, "हम तो नहीं लिख पाते, तुम कैसे लिख लेती हो?" Let's not worry about that. कि कैसे लिख पाते हैं. Right now, what we need is all kinds of voices to come. You don't need to be the best writer. You don't need to be a very eloquent speaker. Start from a little bit. Write one post on Facebook about Shajil Usmani. Write one post about Mira Haider and all these people. Right? And then slowly from that, write an article. And then that will build a momentum. Because honestly, for one post which comes on Shajil Usmani, Shajil Imam, for example, we have 100 people who give haha reacts. So the nature of the anti-Muslim Islamophobic force which we are fighting is immense. And for that, we need every Muslim voice, every Muslim student, everyone to come together and resist. And while we cannot protest outside, let's do it by the power of our writing. Yeah, so that's my answer.
Thank you so much for that answer and for your presentation as well. So I would like to thank all of you who have joined us in this online protest. Indeed, lambi hai gham ki shaam par shaam hi to hai. So we will continue our resistance, and it will continue in all modes, in all forms, whatever the circumstances be. Inshallah, we hope that things be fine. We pray that this pandemic also ends as soon as possible, and hope our protest will continue. So I would, on that note, I would like to thank all of you for joining. Thank you so much.